This corner has got the Reverend Michael Brooks only.
When most people consider the glory days of British wrestling, they probably think about the 1980s. World of Sport Wrestling was on TV, and the iconic feud between Big Daddy and Giant Haystacks made them both household names. Millions of people tuned into ITV to watch two 600-pound men slowly ram into each other. After a lull in the 90s and 2000s, British wrestling has returned in something of a renaissance, though it looks very different to what old school fans may remember. The larger-than-life wrestlers have generally been phased out, with smaller men performing shocking acts of athleticism from the likes of Zack Sabre Jr. and the Bastard Pac. The uber-macho displays of masculinity have been replaced with people like Grado, dancing to the ring wearing a fanny pack while an entire arena sings along to Madonna's Like a Prayer. In an even more important change, women and LGBT performers are being granted a spotlight that they've never had before. Women like Tegan Nox and Piper Niven are treated as even bigger stars than most of the men, and in the US, transgender star Nyla Rose recently became All Elite Wrestling's inaugural women's champion. This is exciting for an industry that has historically had a serious problem with homophobia, both in and out of the ring. For a long time, the closest thing mainstream wrestling got to queer representation was Goldust, a sexual deviant who would come to the ring being pulled on a leash or wearing women's lingerie. One of the few openly gay wrestlers in WWE history, the late Chris Kanyon was forced to hide the fact that he was gay throughout the early 2000s. In the words of Wrestling Observer newsletter writer Dave Meltzer, he kept his homosexuality secret, but it tore him up when other wrestlers in front of him talk about how much they hated gays or made gay jokes. He constantly feared that if they knew, that he'd never be accepted, even though many gay pro wrestlers are accepted, and those comments are just part of the high school locker room mentality. This is Matthew Gregg, longtime wrestling fan and host of Botchamania, a wrestling blooper reel show on YouTube that consistently gets well over 200,000 views per video.
My mum got me a copy of the WWF Annual 93 and the WWF Annual 94. Before I'd even seen any wrestling, before I knew what wrestling was, like a big picture book almost of just the stars at the time, like Bam Bam Bigelow, The Undertaker, Repo Man. I was blown away and went, whoa. And this was, God, I was young. This was well after 93, 94. So it was a car boot sale. So I can't remember how old I was, but I just really liked the idea of wrestling. So if it was on TV, just watch it and get into it. But it wasn't until it came on in the UK TV on the NTL, very cheap version of Sky in late 99, early 2000, that I really got into it and never looked back.
He's also openly bisexual, and he spoke to me about what it's like to love an industry that doesn't always feel like it loves you back.
I think I'm lucky enough and I'm able to separate the bits of me that make me, I know everyone is, and I can obviously, I think someone said it's a very white thing to say because, I can just do what the hell I like. But there's bits of me that just watch it and go, this is me watching this as a wrestling fan. There's been awful moments, obviously. There's been awful things wrestlers have said and felt, posted, tweeted, said, and thought in character and in real life on the mic. And I thought, at the hell them. But when there's been terrible stuff happening in the ring and it's been like, okay, yeah, a bit of that, I've just gone, yeah, that's because it's the core audience. That's because it's looking to get that general, normal, common or garden person into it. And I have the assumption that most people are homophobic. And maybe it's changing, maybe it's not. Maybe I live in a bubble, I don't know. But during the times I've been watching it, I've just gone, yeah, because most people aren't down with that. So I've never really seen wrestling as homophobic. It has been homophobic and horrible offensive elements to it, but maybe not inherently.
But happily, this kind of thinking isn't as necessary for LGBT fans as it once was. We are seeing more and more LGBT people taking to the ring. One such athlete is the Rainbow Rebel Sky James, who's been fighting for promotions like Titanic Wrestling since she began training at just 16 years old.
John Cena, he was my favourite growing up, and I loved like his messaging that he always had on his merch. Like the never give up kind of thing. He's, even if it was a wee bit cheesy, I always liked it. And I had like most wee girls, they had their room with One Direction, and my room was just full of John Cena posters everywhere.
Coming to the ring draped in a rainbow flag, Sky has made her pride a central part of her presentation as a wrestler.
I've experienced homophobia my whole life. I even recently, well, not recently now, but 2019, I experienced a wee bit of it in wrestling as well. So it's kind of like my way of telling others that want to come in, look, it's all right. Because I was at a training school, ironically, called Respect. And they were making like homophobic comments and stuff to me whenever I was in the ring, and starting these homophobic chants at training, and it just wasn't nice. So that's part of the reason why I like to come out with a flag, just so that it can be a bit of representation for anyone that wants to come in. And then it means that if there is other people in that start wrestling in other places, and maybe they could come across a bit of homophobia or fans at shows, then they know, that's not the case everywhere. That there is a place for them in wrestling.
Sky's experience with homophobia at Respect is one of the many incidents that came out during last year's Speaking Out movement, which shook the UK wrestling scene to its core. Many of its top stars were accused of sexually assaulting female trainees and fans. Allegations were so widespread that Labour MP Alex Davies-Jones spoke about it in Parliament.
Now, while it's easy to get lost in the statistics, these numbers really do matter, particularly in traditionally male-dominated sports such as wrestling. The disturbing reality and lived experience for many female wrestlers is more often than not entrenched in misogyny. I have heard horrific tales from female wrestlers who were faced with threats of rape or sexual assault, all in the name of friendly banter. I have also heard from women as young as 13 or 14 who at the start of their careers were the targets of vile behaviours that saw male wrestlers competing to be the first to take their virginity. The Me Too movement shone a light on the inherent misogyny that persists across so many industries, but less well known is the Speaking Out movement that has tainted the wrestling industry with its harrowing stories of emotional and sexual abuse. These behaviours are disgraceful, yet they continue to persist, and ultimately the sports industry urgently needs more regulation. The UK government has a responsibility to engage proactively with governing bodies to support women and to bring an end to this abuse.
With the rise of social media, the relationship between wrestlers and fans has become far closer. This can be exciting for fans, but it also presents opportunities for certain wrestlers to take advantage.
Now that wrestlers know that a lot of fans are happy with that, I also do worry that a lot of wrestlers are using these to get the fan. Oh, you want me to tweet this, do you? Okay. So I'm worried that they're creating rainbow shields for themselves to go, well, he tweeted trans lives matters. He can't be a bad person. And we have what we'll call this thing I call second kayfabe, where, well, this person's on their character on TV. That's their wrestling character. But on Twitter, that's their real person. I'm like, nah. There's Twitter kayfabe now. So like I said, the wrestler is changing as long with the wrestling fan.
When Matthew uses the term kayfabe, he's referring to the concept where wrestlers act as if everything that's happening in-ring is completely legitimate. And while it's easy to assume everyone is lying about their motivations, it's also important to understand that there are some people out there who seem to be completely sincere in their attempts to create a safe space for marginalised groups. One such group is Pro Wrestling Eve, the Riot Girls of Wrestling. The feminist punk rock promotion described their shows as a night of death-defying, jaw-dropping, action-packed wrestling stunts, fueled with cabaret, comedy, and so much more. Since their founding in 2006, they've played a major part in the growth of women's wrestling in the UK. One of the biggest moments in the promotion's history is in 2017, when former champion Charlie Morgan came out as gay in the middle of the ring.
what you're trying to do. I see where you're trying to go with that snidey comment. What do you think? I'm scared to fucking say it? Do you think I'm gonna shy away from the fact that I'm gay?
Fight like a girl! Fight like a girl! Fight like a girl! Fight like a girl! Fight like a girl!
Guess what? I'm not fucking shy to say who the fuck I am and what I'm about, and I'd appreciate it if you fuck right off!
The speaking out movement has shown that the state of the industry is far from perfect, but moments like this showcase the incredible amount of progress that has been made. And while dealing with these allegations is painful and upsetting and very draining, it's also necessary. The wrestling industry has always had its fair share of monsters, and that can make it difficult to be a fan. But by removing abuses from the community, it becomes a safer and more inclusive place for everyone.
It was good to see some of the scumbags getting exposed and getting rightfully booted out of wrestling. Like, I had my own few stories about it. I was a wee bit early with mine because obviously I spoke out about respect, the one I was experiencing homophobia in. And it turned out that there was a hell of a lot more darker stuff going on where there was a trainer there manipulating some of the younger boys, and I'm kind of glad that that all came out so that it could get sorted and so that the boys would be safer. And it's the same with the other promotions, you know, when the scumbags are exposed, then it makes it safer for anyone who wants to train there or any of the fans going to the shows. Like, it was a lot, and it was a lot to take in, especially when you would get some wrestlers that, you know, you maybe hadn't met an awful lot and you actually kind of looked up to them, and then there was stuff coming out about them. But in the long run, I think it's going to make wrestling a lot better.
For every abuser removed from the industry, another opportunity rises for a young LGBT star to break through. While it's nice that promotions like EVE exist to provide a supportive community, the next step is for queer talent to break into the mainstream and prove that they can carry a promotion just as well as the already established stars.
It is a wrestling show. It's the wrestling on TV is about people going, I think I'm better than you, and I'm going to see you in the ring and prove it. So on one hand, I'm wanting to see them go, that's right, I'm gay, I'm bi, I'm a lesbian, I'm going to beat the shit out of you. I'll beat you till you're bleeding rainbow blood. That's kind of what I'm wanting to see, that level of acceptance, rather than, oh, that's nice. Oh, you're that. And again, it's weird. I know it's all layers upon layers, because yes, on that one, it is nice. Yes, you are accepted of this. But you better win, and you better kick ass in a business that's about winning and kicking ass.
All in all, there's plenty to be excited about within wrestling. While the industry is still far from perfect, there are more and more places where LGBT wrestlers can thrive, and necessary steps are being taken to cast out predators, making it a safer place for everyone. Wrestling has a somewhat bad reputation in the mainstream, and that can make it intimidating for young LGBT people to get involved. But to close things off, here's Sky James with some words of advice for those trying to break into the industry.
Well, I would say to make sure to find a training school that are going to have their best interests in mind, and make sure that, you know, they have good trainers and positive people around them. And I would also say that there is always going to be people that will make comments. Let them. They're a minority. They don't mean anything. If they're not paying your bills, they don't mean anything. So just you know, don't change yourself for anyone. Just be you and put the work in, and wrestling can be brilliant that way.